Chapter 1, Chloe, is Liam really going to let you go to London? Her mentor's voice was soft on the other end of the line. Chloe Thorne kicked at a loose pebble on the sidewalk, trying to muster a smile. The words, when they finally came out, were a choked whisper. She pressed her lips together hard. Jessica, Liam and I broke up. There was a stunned silence, but Jessica didn't press for details. Her tone shifted, becoming firm. Then I'm booking your flight for next month. Next month. Chloe glanced back at the man inside the boutique, being fitted for a tuxedo. She fought back the familiar burn in her eyes. Okay. It was time to go. After all, Liam was getting married next month, too. Back inside the high-end tailor shop, Liam called out to her, a force of habit. Hey, can you help me with this tie? Liam Stone hated being touched by strangers. He'd already sidestepped the eager shop assistant, waiting expectantly for Chloe. The gesture was so natural, so easy, as if they were truly the happy couple about to walk down the aisle. Chloe moved closer to fix his tie. The proximity was intoxicating. Liam was a full head taller than her, and his breath ghosted over her hair. For a heart-stopping second, she imagined he would tilt her chin up, just like he had on countless mornings over the past 10 years. But Liam's next words shattered the illusion, yanking her back to their brutal reality. Chloe, you'd better not cry. It'll upset Vivian when she gets here. Vivian Warner, heiress to the Warner consolidated fortune, the woman who was going to marry Liam Stone in 1 month. Liam was no longer satisfied with the current growth of his company, Stone Industries. He was a young, hungry wolf, and his eyes held the predatory green glow of insatiable ambition. A strategic marriage was the fastest way to the top. It was also the catalyst that had torn their 10-year relationship to shreds. They had fought more in the last 6 months than in the entire decade prior. Liam couldn't understand it. It was just a transaction, a mutually beneficial arrangement. It wasn't as if he was actually abandoning her. An empty title versus cold, hard cash. Wasn't the choice obvious? Women, always so emotional. Hearing him say Vivian's name with such casual intimacy, Vive made Chloe's hands falter on the tie. Even with a dead heart, even after being flayed alive and tossed into a vat of acid, the body still twitched with reflex. Her hands trembled with a pain she refused to show. Liam? Chloe bit down, forcing his name out. Liam just smiled. He was doing it on purpose. After a decade together, they knew exactly where to stick the knife to make it hurt the most. It was her fault, wasn't it? For throwing a tantrum and demanding a breakup a few days ago. To Liam, this business marriage was just another deal. And Chloe was breaking up with him because he was partnering with another company? Chloe, he thought, had been too sheltered by him. She never saw the filth and grime he shielded her from in the darkness. She saw a couple of mud splatters and acted like the world was ending. Liam shoved his hands in his pockets, looking down at her. He expected her to burst into tears any second. Chloe's skin was pale, and whenever she was about to cry, her eyelids, the tip of her nose, and her cheeks would flush a telltale pink first. He much preferred it when she cried in a different setting. When she'd look at him with those reddened eyes, pleading, while her hands feebly tried to push him away, begging him to be gentler, to slow down. But Chloe just blinked hard, finished the knot, and smoothed the tie. Her voice was laced with exhaustion. Liam, stop it. That weary, dead inside tone registered in his ears as a form of passive defiance. He seized her wrist as she tried to pull her hand away, yanking her into his arms. He whispered in her ear, his voice a low growl. Chloe, this is the price for talking out of line. Liam stared into her familiar eyes at the soft lips beneath her elegant nose. He leaned in, a conditioned response. But he was stopped by a saccharine female voice. Liam, Vivian Warner swept in, unapologetically shoving Chloe aside and throwing herself into Liam's arms, intercepting the kiss meant for another. With her arms still wrapped around his neck, Vivian glanced back at Chloe. Oh, the assistant is here too. Chapter 2, Chloe's current title was Executive Assistant to Liam Stone. That one-word assistant was like a morsel of gossip for everyone in the boutique. The shop assistant, who had just been praising them as a match made in heaven now, looked like she'd swallowed a fly. Her gaze shifted from envy to disdain. Vivian's shove had been forceful. Chloe clutched her bruised arm, sucking in a sharp breath. Liam didn't even look at her. To everyone else in the room, the other woman got what she deserved. Someone even let out a derisive snort. Liam wrapped a possessive arm around Vivian's slim waist, his touch gentle as he playfully tapped her nose. Late for your own wedding dress fitting? You're such a scatterbrain, Vivian, almost a married woman and still so childish. That tender tone, once exclusively hers, now belonged to someone else. The fragile calm Chloe had just found was shattered again. Back in senior year of high school, she was juggling SAT prep, caring for her sick mother, and dodging her father's debt collectors. She was a teenager who felt the bone-deep weariness of 1,000 lifetimes. She remembered sitting on the back of Liam's beat-up motorcycle, sighing, "Why does life have to be so hard?" The wind billowed his worn t-shirt, filling her senses with the clean scent of laundry soap. His long, lean hand reached back, offering her a lollipop. "Hey, valedictorian, don't look so down. Have something sweet. Don't worry, I've got you." Liam had already dropped out of school by then, working himself to the bone at odd jobs, earning money to patch the endless holes in her life. Her slender arms wrapped around his taut waist, her cheek pressed against his back, which was not yet broad but already strong. The bitterness of her tears mixed with the sweetness of the candy, creating a unique, indelible memory of their past. Looking at the man before her, no longer a boy, Chloe thought how much better it would have been if Liam had never been so good to her. Maybe then, it wouldn't hurt this much. They met at 14, fell in love at 18. They had walked through the mud together, grown up together, and finally saw the light of day. But now, he was going to marry someone else. In an act of near self-torture, Chloe forced herself to watch the intimate couple, each glance a fresh cut from a blade. She thought she was numb, but the next slice was still agonizing. The depth of the love she once gambled everything on was the measure of how deeply the arrows pierced her now. But the torture was almost over. She was leaving. 6 months ago, her grad school mentor had reached out, inviting her to a job opportunity in London. She'd held onto a sliver of hope for Liam then, so she had declined. She should have said yes immediately. It would have saved her 6 months of this soul-crushing pain. Liam glanced at Chloe, noticing her distant, unfocused gaze. He frowned. Her behavior today was abnormal. When she first found out he was engaged to someone else, she had fought with him relentlessly. He'd been annoyed. But recently, she'd stopped fighting, and that made him uneasy. It felt like something fundamental was shifting, but he couldn't put his finger on it. His arm around Vivian tightened unconsciously. Vivian, feeling his grip, snuggled closer. It was Dad's fault he insisted I personally deliver the wedding invitations to all his old business partners. It was such a pain. As she spoke, she began to undo Liam's tie, a knowing smile on her face. "Who tied this for you? Nobody ties a Windsor knot like that anymore. It's so dated you'll be a laughingstock." Vivian, of course, knew all about Chloe and Liam. She just didn't care. She was the victor now. In their world, every wealthy family had its dirty little secrets. She was young, beautiful, and once they were married, she was confident she could win Liam's heart for real. Her gaze never left him, but her words were directed at Chloe, as if she were speaking to a maid. "Chloe, Liam will be attending more and more formal events. You need to put a little more effort into your job. He pays you a 6-figure salary. You can't just take it for nothing. Liam's a man, he doesn't sweat the small stuff, but after we're married, that money is our joint asset." She then cast a sidelong, condescending glance at Chloe, her tone mocking. "And I'm a very, very meticulous boss, you know?" A joke that was also a knife. The Warners seemed to have a talent for that. The last time Vivian's mother had visited the office, she had been the same. Polite but distant. "You must be Chloe. I hear you're Liam's executive assistant." "My Vivian is so pure-hearted, not like you girls who have had to fight your way up from the streets. As their assistant, you'll need to serve the young couple well." Liam had been right there. He heard it all and just smiled, just like he was doing now. Chloe stood silently, her head bowed. Liam smiled, letting Vivian retie his tie. "Of course, no one has better taste than my Vivian. After we're married, I'll have to trouble Mrs. Stone with these little things." He then looked at the silent Chloe, his tone shifting to that of a real boss. "Did you hear Miss Warner speaking to you? What's wrong? You don't want your paycheck anymore?" Liam stared into her eyes, a victorious smirk on his face. Chloe's fists clenched, her nails digging deep into her palms. The reason Liam could hold her captive so forcefully wasn't just their years of emotional entanglement. There was another, more critical reason. Chloe's phone vibrated. It was the hospital. "Miss Thorne." "Your mother just showed signs of heart failure. You need to come quickly." Chloe turned to leave, but Liam stopped her. "You haven't answered Miss Warner yet." Chapter 3. Chloe desperately wanted to tell him it was the hospital, but she couldn't bring herself to mention her mother in front of Vivian. It felt like a violation, as if her mother could somehow sense the humiliation. How heartbroken would her mother be if she knew what had become of her and Liam? In her senior year, while she was studying for the SATs, her mother had suffered a sudden brain aneurysm, terrified by debt collectors. She survived but was left paralyzed, confined to a bed. In between his grueling jobs, Liam would go to their apartment to help care for her. He was 18, an age when most boys were busy trying to act cool. But Liam's hands were already calloused, his lean muscles still boyish but already capable of expertly caring for a patient. He cooked, he fed her, he changed soiled sheets. But her mother, a modest woman, refused his help with more personal matters, insisting on waiting for Chloe. Liam looked at her, helpless. Finally, he called her. "Mom, can I call you Mom? Please, just think of me as your son, I'm begging you." Chloe is already exhausted. "Please, just let me help. She's so smart, so hardworking, she has to get into college." Liam's pleading words reached Chloe as she rushed home. "Mom, I'll work hard to earn money, and you work hard on your physical therapy. We'll both try not to hold Chloe back, okay?" The last rays of the setting sun streamed into the dingy rental apartment, falling on Liam's back as he knelt by the bed. Chloe leaned against the doorframe, her hand clamped over her mouth as silent, racking sobs shook her body. That summer, after graduation, her mother, drooling and trembling, had taken her hand and placed it in Liam's. Back then, they were all gritting their teeth, holding on, believing that if they could just get through it, things would get better. Then, during Chloe's sophomore year of college, her mother had a second hemorrhage. She fell into a vegetative state, kept alive by machines in a hospital, the costs flowing like water from a tap. But by then, thankfully, Liam had started a small company. After graduating, Chloe joined his company. Top firms had been clamoring to hire her, but how could she choose anyone else? All these years, she had stayed by his side as his assistant, watching him climb, step by step, until they reached this fork in the road. Chloe looked at the aggressive, domineering Liam before her. It turned out that the deep love of their youth didn't prevent this devastating collapse. Her mother was waiting at the hospital. She had no energy left to fight with them. She had already lost. Chloe moistened her dry lips and looked up, forcing a professional smile. "I've taken note of everything Miss Warner said. I will improve my skills to be worthy of every dollar Mr. Stone pays me. However, with Miss Warner here now, I'm sure a task like tying a tie will no longer fall to me, his assistant." She turned to Liam, her voice calm and collected. "I have an urgent matter to attend to right now. Mr. Stone, may I request a leave of absence?" Vivian gave a slight, satisfied smile, her answer implicit. Liam's brow furrowed. Was this another one of her tantrums? Chloe was always like this. The angrier she got, the calmer she appeared. When she ground out his name through clenched teeth, Liam would just laugh. But when she called him Mr. Stone in that formal tone, it meant he needed to do some serious placating. "What urgent matter?" Liam asked. Chloe replied with 2 words, "Personal business." Liam's lips curled into a smirk. "Then handle company business first. Go get Miss Warner a coffee. No sugar, double cream." Her phone vibrated again. Chloe looked straight at Liam. "Mr. Stone, I am requesting a leave of absence, effective immediately. If you won't grant it, you can fire me." Ignoring Liam's cold, teeth-grinding sneer, Chloe walked away without a backward glance. Why would her mother suddenly go into heart failure? She rushed to the hospital, only to find her mother had been moved from her room. There had been a dangerous incident during the transfer, but she was stable now. The heart that had been lodged in Chloe's throat crashed back into her chest. She realized her entire body was numb. Her voice came out sharper than she intended. "Who gave you permission to move my mother?" Chapter 4. Liam was a shareholder in the hospital. This room, the best in the entire facility, had been reserved for Chloe's mother year-round. But now, a strange old man was in her bed. The nurse, faced with Chloe's accusation, was defensive. "Mr. Stone owns the rights to this room. His fiancée called and said they needed to use it for a couple of days, and that Mr. Stone knew about it. We just moved her to a different room. We didn't kick her out. We've been taking excellent care of her for years." Chloe knew it was useless to get angry with the nurse. The frustration was a suffocating lump in her chest with nowhere to go. After 10 years together, very few people knew about her and Liam, aside from a handful of close friends. Even the employees at their company were unaware of their history. They just saw her as a diligent, dedicated assistant. But when Liam got engaged to Vivian, it was a media spectacle, dominating the gossip columns for days. Before that, Chloe and Liam had been in the midst of their worst fight ever. "Liam, is money that important? So important that you have to sell yourself for it?" Chloe's words had been sharp, and Liam, enraged, had swept their framed photo off his desk. The shattered glass fractured the two young, smiling faces in the picture. The flying shards seemed to slice into the very souls of the two people standing opposed. Chloe's tears flowed like a river. Unable to stand, she sank to the floor, trying to pick up the pieces of the photo from the broken glass, cutting her hands in the process. Liam dropped to one knee, letting the shards dig into his flesh through the fabric of his suit pants. Two bleeding souls, clinging to each other. Chloe's voice was a hoarse plea. "Liam, please don't get engaged to someone else. I'm begging you." This was the man who had been by her side for 10 years, the man who had carried her burdens on his back without complaint. How could she bear to let him go? For a fleeting moment, as Liam held the trembling girl in his arms, he considered giving it all up. To hell with it, this was the girl he cherished, the girl he protected in the core of his heart. How could he stand to see her cry like this? But in the next second, he remembered the bitter, desperate days. Chloe didn't know how he had climbed his way to this point, walking a tightrope of deceit and betrayal. He was just one step away from the top of the pyramid. One single step. A step that, through hard work and luck alone, would be harder than climbing to the heavens. It would only be for a few years. Once he was at the top, firmly established, he and Chloe would never have to struggle again. Chloe clutched his shirt, her face pressed against his chest. Her tears soaked through the fabric, scalding his heart. A few seconds of heavy silence passed. She heard the powerful, ambitious beat of his heart. She heard his trembling voice say, "Chloe, I'm getting engaged to Vivian next week." Chloe demanded a breakup. Liam, cornered, resorted to a desperate, ugly threat. "Break up. Chloe, do you have any money in your account? If we break up today, you won't even be able to pay your mother's medical bills tomorrow. Are you just going to watch her die?" His emotions spiraled out of control, his words becoming reckless. "Chloe, I've endured so much for you all these years. What did I always say? I'd wade through the mud so you could be a pristine flower. What right do you have to break up with me?" Chloe pushed him away. Tears streamed down her face, but she refused to make another sound. She ripped the blood-stained photo into pieces and threw them at him. In that moment, Chloe knew. She and Liam Stone were finally at their end. Chloe looked at her mother, lying peacefully in the hospital bed. She took that withered, bark-like hand and pressed it to her cheek. She had no one left to lean on now. "Mom, in a few days, I'll take you away from here, okay?" Her mentor had already arranged for a hospital in London that could take her mother. But first, she needed money. A message popped up on her phone. It was from her subordinate at the company. "Chloe, Mr. Stone said you're resigning?" Just then, a young nurse knocked on the door, her tone still a bit defensive. "Miss Thorne, the billing department just informed me that the payment for your mother's hospitalization for this month has been stopped. Will you be renewing?" Looking at her mother, who seemed to be sleeping so peacefully, Chloe clenched her jaw. Liam was backing her into a corner. Chapter 5, Liam wasn't surprised when Chloe showed up. After all, she hadn't given up on her mother even in their most difficult times. A little fight with him wasn't going to change that. Liam and Vivian were with the wedding planner, scouting a venue. It was a sprawling outdoor lawn, a prime piece of real estate where every square foot was worth a fortune. Vivian waved a dismissive hand, issuing commands in her delicate voice. "I want both sides of the aisle lined with roses, all Juliet roses." The planner did a quick mental calculation and winced, glancing at Liam for confirmation. Liam chuckled. "Whatever the bride wants, if money can buy it, it's not a problem. The most important thing is that Vivian is happy." As he said it, his smiling eyes were fixed on Chloe. A few $1,000,000 for flowers, enough to cover her mother's medical bills for a year. Liam ignored her, continuing his conversation with the planner. "Mr. Warner and I have discussed it. We're skipping the sentimental part where the father walks the bride down the aisle. I'll come to get the bride myself. That way our beautiful bride won't get all teary-eyed. Vivian tugged on his arm. After I marry you, will you ever make me cry? Liam's gaze was intense. Of course not. Chloe had once fantasized about her own wedding with Liam. In college, they attended a friend's wedding. When the friend's father placed his daughter's hand in the groom's, Chloe had cried harder than the bride. She thought about how at her and Liam's wedding, there would be no elders to give their blessing. Liam was an orphan. Her own father was gone, and her mother was confined to a bed. Everyone had laughed at her for crying more than the main characters, but Liam had held her close, wiped her tears, and made her a solemn promise. When it's our turn, I'll run to you. I'll never let you stand there alone. Tears were still falling from her eyes, but her lips had curved into a smile. Two kids who grew up together, fighting day by day just to survive. No one had ever told them that you shouldn't date for too long without getting engaged, without getting married. They were fumbling through a thick fog, and they had missed their window. The hospital was still waiting for Chloe's answer. Seizing a moment when Vivian was distracted, she forced herself to approach him. Liam, he scoffed. What's this? Didn't you quit, Miss Assistant? Just resigned and you're already dropping the Mr. Stone? Liam looked at her, smug and self-satisfied. He saw a stray strand of hair by her ear and had to fight the urge to tuck it back for her. He often thought Chloe was book smart, but life stupid. A little scare was all it took to make her bow her head. Did she really think he wouldn't pay the bills? The thought soured his mood. How could she not trust him? Chloe looked up at him, her face showing a vulnerability he hadn't seen in a long time. Good. This Chloe felt alive. Liam's smug smile returned. He didn't even realize that Chloe held the switch to his every emotion. He pulled out a cigarette and stuck it between his lips, his tone mocking. What? Ran out of money and suddenly remembered me. Chloe, you don't even know how to ask for a favor properly, do you? He nodded to himself. Then again, you've never had to beg anyone for anything. He lit the cigarette, took a deep drag, and blew a plume of smoke in her face. Leaning in close, he whispered beside her ear, Don't worry, I'll teach you tonight. At home. The smoke hit her full in the face, and Chloe choked, doubling over in a coughing fit. The coughing triggered a spasm in her stomach. A wave of nausea washed over her, and with it, a sudden, jolting realization. In the chaos of the past 2 months, she had been so distracted. Her period was late. Chapter 6, that evening, Vivian dragged Liam out for dinner with her father's old business partners. Uncle Yang said he's bringing 2 bottles of his vintage stuff, Vivian said, her fingers intertwined with Liam's. She swung their hands back and forth, looking as innocent as a schoolgirl. Oh, so they know I'm stealing their little princess, and now all the old guards are ganging up to get me drunk? Liam's hand swung along with hers. What? You can drink with anyone else, but not with my uncles. Vivian's free hand traced circles on his chest through his shirt. Everyone knows Liam Stone can hold his liquor. Besides, she purred, if you get too drunk, you don't have to leave. Or is my family's house too small for Mr. Stone's tastes? Liam genuinely disliked being touched so casually, but he wasn't one to let personal preferences get in the way of a good deal. He was ruthless with others, and even more so with himself. Only when Vivian's hand slid down towards a more sensitive area did Liam finally catch her mischievous wrist. Driving without a license? I'm afraid Mr. Warner will have my hide. His tone was perfectly pitched, turning rejection into a flirtatious game. Vivian blushed under his gaze, hooking both arms around his neck and pulling him down for a kiss. Liam obliged, his lips brushing the corner of hers. His eyes, however, flickered over to where Chloe was finalizing wedding details with the planner. Chloe had never been like this before. She was like a shy mimosa plant, shrinking at the slightest touch. Their first kiss had been on her 18th birthday. Liam had taken a half-day off from his jobs to bake a small cake in their tiny rental apartment. It had no decorations, just a slightly lopsided mound of white frosting. He'd bought old-fashioned birthday candles, and the tinny, off-key electronic happy birthday melody mingled with the meaningless mumbles from her mother's sickbed. In the still summer air, Liam had dabbed a bit of frosting on the tip of her cute, upturned nose. Chloe looked up at him, a speck of cream on her own lips. Liam couldn't resist. He leaned in and kissed the sweetness away. Chloe's pale face had flushed a burning red. The room was silent except for the electronic birthday song. Youth was bitter, but a first kiss was sweet. Chloe didn't know it, but she was also the star of Liam's first wet dream. Liam couldn't figure it out. Even later, when he had money and had seen every kind of woman in every kind of high-class establishment, none of them affected him like Chloe. None of them made him lose control. He later stumbled upon a term for it, a physiological attraction, a primal, physical response that transcended reason. Vivian's perfume nauseated him. Kissing her was nauseating. He felt like a fish thrown into the desert, desperate to get back to water to breathe. Chloe was his only source of water. Finally released from the wedding planning, Liam drove Vivian to her dinner party. Chloe immediately rushed to a pharmacy to buy a pregnancy test. During the few minutes of waiting, her mind was a chaotic storm of thoughts. She set the test stick aside, not even daring to look. The last time had been 2 months ago. Liam had become increasingly possessive in recent years. The more she pushed him away, the more it seemed to fuel some game of push and pull in his mind. Chloe clasped her hands together, praying, though she didn't even know what she was praying for. Of course, she had dreamed of having children with Liam. She imagined their child would be happy. She and Liam had endured so much hardship, their child deserved a life free from it. But when Chloe finally saw the faint red line on the test strip, she covered her face, her eyes stinging. This child had come at the wrong time. It didn't know that its mother was plotting an escape. As Chloe's mind reeled, the front door of their home slammed open with a loud bang. Liam was back. Chapter 7. Chloe. Liam bellowed her name the moment he walked in, irritably tearing at the tie around his neck. To hell with the new knot styles. Give him 3 more years, and he would crush all of these old bastards under his heel. His stomach burned from the cheap liquor they'd forced on him. Liam's stomach had been ruined years ago. He'd lost count of the times he'd been hospitalized for bleeding ulcers. Everyone said Liam Stone could drink anyone under the table, but the truth was he was just better at hiding the pain in public. But now he was home. He could shed his hard exterior and collapse into the warmth Chloe provided. Countless times, he'd lain in a hospital bed with an IV drip while Chloe sat beside him, her fingers tracing the bloodstains on his shirt. The girl's eyes would be red-rimmed. When you love someone, you feel their pain. In those years, she always used to say, "Liam, I'm already so happy. I don't want you to work yourself to death. I've graduated now, I can help you." Liam would just smile and pat her head. "Don't you worry your pretty little head." Of course, Chloe was brilliant. A top graduate, scholarships every year. She had job offers from major corporations falling into her lap, but he didn't want her working anywhere else. He couldn't bear the thought of Chloe having to navigate office politics and deal with difficult people. A few drinks? What were they going to do, kill him? He called her name a few times but got no answer. He collapsed onto the sofa, muttering, "Early, come here, I feel awful." Early. It was his pet name for her. He'd given it to her because he believed people with nicknames were cherished and loved. A sharp cramp seized his stomach. He staggered into the bathroom and collided right into Chloe. Chloe jumped, hastily hiding the pregnancy test behind her back. Liam had monolids, and when he was sober and serious, his eyes were as sharp as knives. But whenever he was drunk, they seemed to take on a hazy, seductive quality. He leaned against the doorframe, his eyes drunkenly fixed on her. "What are you hiding?" A wicked smirk played on his lips. "Hiding another man," his long arm snaked out. "Come here, let me check if my little kitten has been sneaking treats while I was away." Liam was infuriating. He knew how easily she blushed, and he loved to tease her until her face was crimson. "You're drunk, I'll go make you some sober-up soup." Chloe tried to slip past him, but he grabbed her by the shoulders and slammed her against the wall. The impact sent a jolt of pain through her back. Liam's hand slid down from her shoulder, grabbing the hand she had hidden behind her. It was empty. His breath, heavy with alcohol, was hot against her earlobe. His voice was a low, husky rumble. "I don't want soup. I want you." His restless hand was already inside her shirt, tracing the delicate line of her waist, a desperate, thirsty exploration, like a dying man clutching a half glass of water. The baby was less than 3 months along. No panic surged through Chloe. Liam's hand had already found her sharp shoulder blades and was sliding down her back. She couldn't let him. And she couldn't let him find out she was pregnant. "Don't," Chloe pushed against him. Liam just grinned wider. "Oh, right, I almost forgot. I still have to teach you the proper way to beg. Don't worry, I'll be a very thorough teacher tonight. My star pupil will learn fast. He lifted her in one swift motion and set her on the bathroom counter. Chloe scrambled backward, but he grabbed her by the ankles and yanked her forward. In that split second, Chloe threw her arms around his neck. Her ice-cold hands pressed against his scorching hot back. Liam, my hands are cold. Her eyes were pleading, her voice pitiful. Liam froze. The coldness of her palms against his skin was like a block of ice that refused to melt. Chloe's hands were perpetually cold, a strange phenomenon that someone had once joked about. A girl with cold hands has no one to love her. Liam had refused to believe it. On frigid winter nights, he would hold her icy body close to his, warming her bit by bit. Chloe didn't need anyone else's love. She had Liam. Liam, my hands are cold. To his ears, it sounded like, Liam, love me. That night, as Liam slept, he still held Chloe's hand tightly in his. Chloe carefully slipped her hand out of his grasp. Then, just as carefully, she took his phone. The password was her birthday. She transferred the money and then meticulously deleted all traces of her actions. Chapter 8, she had to get her mother out of the country. And now, she had a child to think about. She needed more money. She was just finding a way to take back what she had earned for Liam over all these years. The man, restless from the alcohol, suddenly rolled over, pinning her beneath him. He pulled her close as if she were a pillow. Early, he murmured in his sleep. Early, I'll marry you. His voice was thick with sleep and something that sounded a lot like love. The phone, lying beside them, was still lit up. A pang of bitterness hit Chloe. She was about to leave. What was the point of saying these things now? Chloe's hand rested on Liam's sharp, chiseled face. Liam Stone, you liar. Liam Stone was the dark horse of the business world. Having grown up poor, he was ruthless when it came to making money and didn't care who he offended. The more enemies he made, the more people wanted to see him fall. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to poach Chloe, overtly or covertly. Today was the auction for a prime piece of land. Liam had publicly declared that he would buy it as a wedding gift for Vivian. He needed to use the Warner family as a stepping stone, and that meant making a significant, upfront investment. Chloe sat in a cafe, holding the folder with Liam's final bid, her mind adrift. Jessica had just messaged her. The hospital in London was ready. She could leave at any time. She was jolted back to reality when a man sat down across from her. Miss Thorne, something to drink. His voice was different from Liam's deep timbre. It was bright, soft, and warm. Lucas Croft, the young scion of Croft Enterprises. He was as polished as his voice, a gentleman on the outside, a shark on the inside. Chloe smiled faintly and picked up her glass of lemon water, trying to suppress a wave of nausea. This little thing in her belly, not even 2 months along, was already as troublesome as its deadbeat father. The price had already been negotiated. $450,000 wired directly to an overseas account. Enough to get her mother settled safely. Once she was there and working, she could support her mother and the baby on her own. But as the moment of exchange arrived, a flicker of hesitation went through her. Betrayal. Liam had betrayed their love. She was betraying his company. They had both betrayed the passionate, all in love of their 18-year-old selves. Lucas Croft watched the somber expression on her face, a knowing smile playing on his lips. He made a sincere offer. Miss Thorne, as far as I know, you never signed a non-compete agreement. Are you sure you won't consider coming to Croft Enterprises? I can guarantee our offer will be just as competitive as Liam Stone's. Chloe shook her head. She wasn't a dog that followed a bone. She stood to leave, but he suddenly grabbed her arm, pulling her close. Chloe let out a small gasp, which Lucas silenced with a SHH. He held her in what looked like a gentle embrace, but his grip was iron-strong, impossible to break. Mr. Croft, Chloe was confused. Her ingrained sense of propriety stopped her from saying anything harsher. Miss Thorne, what we're doing might not be exactly above board, but you can't double-cross me like this. Why don't we invite your friend with the camera over there to join us? Startled, Chloe followed his gaze. In a corner across the street, she saw the dark, unmistakable lens of a camera. A prying, secret hoarding eye. Lucas watched the color drain from Chloe's face and raised an eyebrow. It seems, Miss Thorne, that we've both been caught in the same trap. A wave of dread washed over Chloe. Who was it? Liam? Did he find out last night? Then, the baby, Chloe's hands went cold as if she were already dead. "Miss Thorne, under the circumstances, my apologies," Lucas whispered, pulling her closer, his back to the camera as he dipped his head down. His face was inches from hers. Chloe pushed against him with all her might, but he only held her tighter. "Compared to corporate espionage, Miss Thorne, I think we'd both prefer this just look like a date." The sound of a camera shutter clicked, capturing what looked like a passionate kiss between two lovers. Chloe's heart hammered against her ribs, threatening to leap out of her throat. If that was Liam, it was all over. She had to leave. She had to leave today. Chapter 9, The hangover was a jackhammer inside his skull. Liam stretched an arm across the bed, but it met only empty sheets. He sat up, clutching his head, and remembered the land auction today, but he was sure he'd assigned someone else to it. After all, the land was a gift for the Warners. Sending Chloe would have been cruel. He let out a cold laugh at the thought. Wasn't it cruel to make her watch him marry someone else? Then he remembered the redness of her eyes, her pleading gaze. The images drilled into his brain, unbidden. He shook his head, which only made the pain worse. This was no time for sentimentality. At 18, supporting a sick woman and a student on top of that, he'd had to turn himself into a machine just to survive. Back then, his friends had all called him a fool. "You really think she's gonna stick with a high school dropout after she gets her college degree?" Liam, stop raising a wife for some other guy, he just gritted his teeth and laughed. They didn't know shit. Liam wasn't an orphan. He had a mother and a father, but they had divorced, started new families, and wouldn't even give him their new addresses. At 16, he was running with a bad crowd, skipping school, getting into fights, living like a piece of trash in internet cafes. One day, he was cornered in a dead-end alley. There were 6 of them, all bigger and stronger. Liam spat out a mouthful of blood, his hand reaching into his pocket for the handle of his knife. He was going to kill one of them today. His life was worthless anyway. He'd barely attended a real class in years, but his class president, who was just passing by the alley, had to be a fool. She was so scared, her voice trembled. "What are you doing? I've called the police. So stupid." What kind of teenage delinquent was afraid of the cops? Chloe was dragged into the darkness, into the mud. The zipper on her clean school uniform was ripped, the fabric trampled underfoot. Liam was pinned to the ground, a foot on his face, forced to watch as they snatched the knife from his hand and used it to slice through the thin fabric of her blouse. It wasn't until the wail of a real siren filled the air that the bastards finally scattered. Killing is against the law," Chloe stammered, picking up her dirt-stained uniform from the ground. She had to get home. Her mother was waiting. "They're not worth it." Liam had taken off his jacket and tied it around her waist. And him, his worthless life, was it worth it? He could never repay her. Liam Stone owed Chloe Thorne a debt he could never settle in this lifetime. His life was hers. He had long considered her a part of his own body. Everything he did was to ensure that their shared destiny would reach the pinnacle, looking down on the world. He dragged his aching head to the bathroom to brush his teeth. His phone rang at the worst possible time. An employee's voice, panicked, as if the world was ending. "Mr. Stone, we lost the bid," his brain exploded. Then, another call immediately after, from the hospital. "Mr. Stone, your prepaid deposit has been refunded to your account. Miss Thorne just checked her mother out and transferred her to another facility." The information overload made Liam feel like he was still drunk. This had to be a nightmare. He bit down hard on his index finger. The sharp, searing pain confirmed he was awake. As he looked down, his eyes fell on the trash can. Lying in the otherwise empty bin was a pregnancy test, with 2 lines. He tried calling Chloe, but the number was disconnected. Liam slammed his fist into the mirror. With a loud crack, his world shattered. Only the blood, dripping from his knuckles, mocked his powerlessness. A laugh bubbled up from the depths of his immense fury, shaking his chest. Chloe well played. He forced himself to calm down, but it was useless. When he made the next call, his voice was an uncontrollable roar of rage. Find every piece of information on Chloe Thorne's movements now. He stared at his own menacing, fractured reflection in the broken mirror. Liam gritted his teeth. "Chloe, don't you let me find you." Chapter 10, Chloe felt like she was in a race against time for her very life. In that alley when she was 16, she had learned exactly what kind of person Liam Stone was. He was a madman, willing to suffer 1,000 cuts just to drag someone down with him. The camera had thrown her plans into chaos, turning everything into a high-stakes gamble. Inside the ambulance, her cold hands clutched her mother's withered ones. Just 3 hours. First, a transfer to a neighboring city. Jessica was already expediting the paperwork. At the latest, they could leave for London in 2 days. If she could just get out of the country, she could escape Liam's grasp completely. A fresh start. Every jolt of the ambulance tugged at her lifeline. She listened intently to her mother's faint heartbeat on the monitor, terrified that the next second it would flatline into a piercing, desperate wail. "Mom, please hold on," she wanted to pray, but she didn't know to whom. God, the universe. When she was a teenager, trapped in their apartment with her mother as debt collectors banged on the door, they had cried out, but heaven and earth remained silent. The gods had abandoned them then. Did she feel resentment? Of course, more than once. She couldn't understand why she, of all people, had to suffer like this. She couldn't even afford to collapse like her mother had. Then Liam came into her life. For a while, she thought it was the gods finally showing her a sliver of favor. She never imagined that brief moment of happiness was just a prelude to being plunged into an even deeper abyss. Liam must know by now. She couldn't imagine what he was like right now. Could he be more desperate than she was when she found out he was marrying someone else? Chloe shook her head. She didn't want him to feel that kind of despair. She tried to console herself. Maybe this wasn't a betrayal. She had just ruined one of his business deals. Just business. It made them even. Chloe could only use this logic to soothe her own heart, which was pounding so hard it felt like it would burst from her chest. Until the ambulance screeched to a halt. The violent inertia threw her against the wall of the vehicle. Her first instinct was to check on her mother. As the monitor's readings fluctuated wildly, she saw a familiar black sedan blocking their path. The sharp, black skid marks on the pavement screamed of the driver's fury. When Liam's long legs kicked open the car door, Chloe's mind went blank. The searing pain of being yanked from the ambulance brought her back to her senses. Liam stared at the woman he had lost and found, his tongue tracing the edge of his teeth. That was close. Another 100 miles and she would have really gotten away. He was meticulously planning their future. And she had been secretly plotting her escape, all along willing to betray him to do it. Liam took several deep breaths, desperately trying to cling to the fraying threads of his sanity. Go back. To maintain that 2-word command with a semblance of calm was the absolute limit of his control. He hoped Chloe wouldn't push them both further towards the abyss, but the woman before him seemed incapable of understanding his intentions. Chloe looked at him and said, "What right do you have to order me around? Mr. Stone, I've resigned." "Liam, we've already broken up." Chloe's slender shoulders slumped. Liam stared into her eyes. His own eyes were bloodshot, but he saw no trace of petulance in hers. She just looked at him, calmly stating their cruel separation. "Liam, my mother is in a very fragile state." Her voice softened as their gazes locked. "Let me go." "Liam, we." Chloe's voice finally cracked with a sob. She was in pain too. After loving someone so truly, after a decade of shared hardship, even a block of wood would feel sorrow. But she was also so cruel. In the face of Liam's pleading eyes, she still said it. "Liam, let's just have a clean break." Those words shattered the tears from Liam's bloodshot eyes. He threw his head back and laughed, a hollow, broken sound. The tears fell straight to the ground. A clean break. What a fucking clean break. He let out a long, shuddering breath and turned back to face her, his trembling arm pointing at the ambulance. "The woman lying in there, she didn't give birth to me, she didn't raise me, but I've supported her for 10 years. I've called her mom for 10 years." His finger then moved to Chloe's stomach. "The baby inside you has my blood, my bones." Finally, his tense hand slammed against his own chest. This has been fucking empty for a long time. I gave it all to you. And now you're telling me you want a clean break. Chloe, you don't have a goddamn heart." Liam wiped the tears from his face, his teeth clenched in a vicious snarl. "You want to go? Go. By yourself. Leave them here." Chloe's eyes shimmered with unshed tears. She turned her head, a tense muscle bulging in her long, slender neck. She turned back, her gaze fractured. "Liam, can you call off the wedding with Vivian right now? Call it off and marry me." Chloe abandoned all reason. She thought that if Liam just nodded his head, right now, she could pretend none of this had ever happened. She would throw herself into his arms without a second's hesitation, for the rest of their lives. She stared into his eyes, demanding an immediate answer. Liam's lips trembled slightly. To call off the wedding now would be to declare war on the city's elite. Everything he had built would turn to ash in an instant. In the fraction of a second that Liam hesitated, the answer was clear. Chloe let out a single, bitter laugh and wiped a tear from her cheek. "Liam, you're just too greedy. Goodbye." She turned, resolute. If Liam reached out, he could have grabbed her, could have thrown her over his shoulder and carried her away, just like he used to. Liam's hand shot out instinctively, but that moment of hesitation meant he grasped only empty air. He was frozen to the spot. Suddenly, the wail of police sirens pierced the air, growing closer. To Liam's astonishment, the officers bypassed him completely and headed straight for the ambulance. "Miss Thorne, you are a person of interest in a corporate espionage investigation. Please come with us." As Chloe was led away, she heard the frantic, alarming beeps from the medical monitor inside the ambulance. Chapter 11, the photographs were the Warner family's handiwork. That innocent and adorable act. That was just for Liam's benefit. "Liam, we were both played for fools." Vivian leaned her head on Liam's shoulder, her voice a delicate purr. "If it wasn't for my father this time, we would have been sold out and still been counting the money for them." It was a complaint, but also a silent warning. They could tolerate a harmless mistress on the side. It was safer than him messing around with strangers. But they would not tolerate their livestock biting the hand that fed it. Vivian's hair brushed against Liam's neck, an itch that fueled his irritation. "My dad found an overseas account in Chloe's name. $450,000 just appeared in it. But the other party is the Croft family, and Lucas Croft is insisting he's just dating his assistant. It's so tricky. And really, Chloe, all that for a mere $450,000, my father's point is, whether your assistant was leaking company secrets or just having an affair, you, as her boss, need to make the right call." Vivian studied Liam's face. It truly was a near-perfect face. A young wolf roaming free was a threat to the established pack. Better to bring it into the fold early. Especially one so skilled in the hunt. It was just a shame about the baggage he came with. But this time, she had him by the throat. Liam stared at the photos spread on the table. The one of them, kissing, snapped the last thread of his sanity. Chloe, how dare she leaking company secrets meant prison time. Being too close to a competitor meant being fired. The Warners were making it clear he had to cut ties with Chloe permanently. Liam closed his eyes, his head throbbed. Chloe was still being held for questioning. Pregnant. He had no idea what condition she was in. Pregnant. He couldn't let the Warners find out about the baby. No powerful family would allow an outsider's love child to be born. He was facing a multiple-choice question. The optimal choice was clear. Let Chloe go to jail for a few years, tell the Warners she was just a disposable mistress. The second best option, claim it was just an assistant's affair, fire her, and they all go their separate ways. But Liam didn't want to choose either. He wanted to climb the ladder, but that didn't mean he would let himself be stepped on. The Warners had crossed his line. Liam leaned back on the sofa, lost in thought. His hand moved with purpose, tracing Vivian's curves. His lips curled into a smile. "Liam," Vivian blinked at him. "What's your choice?" Liam's strong fingers tilted her chin up, his gaze smoldering. "Vivian, are you sure you want to be talking about other women right now?" His voice was like a spell, making her blush and her heart race. Vivian's face grew hot as he gently guided her down onto the wide sofa. She feebly pounded his chest, which she had coveted for so long. Her voice was a throaty purr. "You're terrible in the dim light," the room filled with the sounds of their passion, her moans silenced by his demanding kisses. Liam moved like a primal beast, his powerful muscles carving a path, sating a ravenous hunger. The woman's trembling hands clawed at his broad back, leaving trails of desire. Afterward, Liam lit a cigarette, grabbed his shirt from the floor, and glanced at his phone. Several missed calls. The ringer had been silenced at some point. They were from the hospital. For no reason, his heart skipped a beat. He called back. The nurse's voice was frantic. "Mr. Stone, Miss Thorne's mother, she just passed away. We couldn't revive her." Chloe sat in the small interrogation room, the water in the cup before her going from hot to cold. No one had come to question her. She knew this was just a game between corporate giants, and she was just a pawn awaiting her fate. Chloe had asked an officer to check on her mother's condition. Her mind was in turmoil. She hadn't eaten all day, and the few sips of water she'd had churned in her stomach. She leaned back against the hard chair, one hand resting protectively on her lower abdomen. "Don't be like your father," she whispered. Chapter 12, the memory surfaced, unbidden. Her last year of college, juggling the startup and her final thesis, the stress so immense her period was late. It was Liam, remembering the date and bringing her a thermos of warming herbal soup, who had made her realize. The color had drained from her face. She'd shoved him hard. He was already so busy, yet he was still like an insatiable dog, always wanting more. Liam had understood the reason for her panic and just laughed. "So what? If you're pregnant, we'll have it. It's not like we can't afford it now." Chloe, usually so mild-tempered, had grabbed his arm and bitten down, hard enough to make him yelp. Easy for him to say as they waited those few agonizing minutes for the test results, Liam had laughed again, earning him another slap. "No, I was just thinking, babies are so soft, right? I see on TV how dads let their kids ride on their shoulders." Chloe's hand on his arm had stilled. Liam's life was devoid of parents. Chloe's own father was a disaster better forgotten. Their concept of a father came from television. Chloe had stolen a glance at Liam. He was the same age as her, yet he had unhesitatingly shouldered all her burdens. Only in these unguarded moments could you still see a trace of the boy he was. Liam stared at the little plastic stick, more focused than she had ever seen him. In that moment, Chloe had thought maybe, just maybe, let us have this child, but even after 10 minutes of intense staring, the second line never appeared. Liam had passed her the thermos. "Drink this while it's hot. I'm going for a smoke." Through the window, she had watched him stare into the distance, a long ash forming on his cigarette before the wind blew it away. He looked like a well-behaved child who hadn't gotten the gift he wanted, but wasn't making a fuss, just lost in his own thoughts for a moment. Her cold palm had rested on her belly for only a second before she pulled it away, afraid the chill would seep through her flesh to the life within. Chloe wondered, how did we get here? People say time heals all wounds. Would she and Liam ever see their wounds heal? By then, this child would be grown. She wondered if it would look more like her or like Liam. A sudden, sharp pain shot through her lower abdomen, spreading rapidly through her veins. Her heart clenched. A wave of overwhelming dread washed over her, so fast she didn't even know where it came from. She shook her head, trying to dispel the terrible thought that had just surfaced. The door opened in the next instant. Chloe looked up sharply. The policewoman's eyes held a hint of pity. "Chloe Thorne, you're free to go?" After years of illness, Chloe's mother had wasted away to a bundle of bones. She had married a factory worker 10 years her senior, introduced by a matchmaker at an age when she didn't even understand love, and stepped right into a tiger's den. She was beaten even while pregnant, forced to cook and clean. She thought having a daughter would finally make her husband act like a man, but trash was just trash. The sound of his drunken footsteps was the devil's whisper. The faded, threadbare clothes couldn't hide the scars. "Just endure it," the older women told her. "When he's old and weak, life will get better." She endured a sunless existence, a young girl aging into a weary, middle-aged woman. The man didn't wait to get old. He just died. He left behind a mountain of debt. Creditors of all shapes and sizes came to their home, their hungry, wolf-like eyes preying on the lone mother and daughter. At night, after putting her daughter to sleep, she would cry, her hand muffling her sobs. The money was gone, the house was gone. It was raining outside, and it was raining inside. This hellish life had drained her soul. Finally, she collapsed. But it was her daughter who suffered the most. At an age when other girls were being raised like precious flowers, her daughter was waking up before dawn in the dead of winter to cook, brushing her teeth while boiling water, snatching glances at a textbook. She hated that she couldn't just die. One day, her daughter came home with a bruised face, her school uniform trampled, a man's jacket tied around her waist to hide her trembling legs. That day, even the scrambled eggs tasted bitter. She should die. If she died, she wouldn't be a burden anymore. The next day, she had crawled to the door, but couldn't even find the strength to open it. The door was pushed open by a young man, a boy really. To her terror, he lifted her back onto the bed. He cooked. He cleaned. Later, he started calling her mom. Her daughter had brought home a boy, but she was destined for a bitter life. When she fell into the endless darkness for the second time, she thought, "Oh God, let all the sins fall on me. Just let my girl and my boy live a good life." Chloe stared at the bloodless face. Her mother had been lying like this for so long that, for a moment, Chloe was disoriented. Who said her mother was dead? She was right here. But the withered hand was colder than her own, so stiff she couldn't even close the fingers. Chloe heard the hushed whispers of people nearby. "It's a mercy. She's free from suffering now. They broke her ribs during the resuscitation. Her bones were probably brittle already." You think they don't know anything, but people in a coma, they say they can hear everything? Chloe stood motionless, as if she had died along with her mother. Chapter 13, when her mentor called to ask when she was coming, Chloe was able to reply with an eerie calm. "Not right now, Jessica. My mother passed away." "No, really, I'm fine. I can handle it. I'll be in touch when I've sorted things out here." The funeral home was empty that night. Chloe had few friends and hadn't told anyone. She knelt beside her mother's portrait, staring blankly. She had killed her mother. Chloe bowed her head, biting her lip to hold back the tears. What was the point of crying? Who was she crying for? When Liam arrived, he was more frantic than she was. So frantic he'd buttoned his shirt wrong, revealing small, telltale marks of passion on his skin. Early, Liam looked at the lone figure kneeling there. There were no tears on her face, no expression at all. In that moment, Liam felt the hollow cavern in his chest ache and shrink. It was his heart, the one he had entrusted to Chloe's body, that was hurting. It was being skinned alive, slowly, and tossed into a pile of salt. He was trembling from the pain, but Chloe seemed to have lost all her senses. Early, Liam knelt in front of her, his outstretched hand not knowing where to land. He still smelled of Vivian's perfume. He was so dirty. Chloe looked up as if just noticing his presence. "You're here." Her tone was peaceful. Her gaze fell on his misaligned buttons. She reached out, a natural gesture, to unbutton and rebutton his shirt. "Liam, light a stick of incense for my mom." Her hands were shaking. The corners of her mouth, trying to form a smile, were also trembling. One by one, she fixed his buttons. But the words that came out of her mouth were impossibly steady. "Let's give my mom a proper send-off. With a beginning and an end." Liam had been prepared for Chloe to scream at him, to have a massive fight. He was even prepared to break things off with the Warners. He'd only found out from a nurse at the hospital that Vivian had moved his mother's room without his knowledge. But why hadn't Chloe told him? Or did she feel it was useless to tell him, just like it was useless to fight his engagement and marriage? No matter how she screamed and cried, it would change nothing. Liam had prepared for many scenarios. He'd even put the hospital on standby, afraid Chloe might try to harm herself or him. The one thing he hadn't prepared for was this. Chloe didn't fight. She didn't utter a single word of blame. She didn't stop him from staying for the wake, from lighting incense, from carrying her mother's portrait at the funeral. Only when it came time to engrave the headstone did she object to his plan to have his name carved on it. "Just my name is fine." Chloe's voice was understanding. "If Miss Warner finds out, she'll be upset. We shouldn't give her the wrong idea." The words landed like a punch to Liam's gut, but he didn't know what to say. Chloe was right. Those were his own words, his own logic, thrown back at him. During the wake, Vivian had called him. "My dad is having his poker night with his friends. You're coming, right?" It wasn't a question. It was a summons. It was an invitation that countless people were desperate to get. Liam didn't refuse. He was a businessman. Chloe's mother was gone. The loss was irreversible. To back out now would be to cut his losses and admit defeat. But this time, he didn't stay the night. When he returned to the funeral home, he was surprised to see Chloe talking to someone. It was Lucas Croft. Liam's face darkened as he strode over, positioning himself in front of Chloe, his eyes on Lucas. "Mr. Croft, what are you doing here?" His tone was a clear warning. Lucas was as unruffled as if he hadn't just orchestrated a multi-million-dollar corporate sabotage against him. "Just came to pay my respects." Liam's eyes narrowed, a cold smile on his lips. "Don't you have anything better to do, Mr. Croft? You're sticking your nose in quite a few places lately." Lucas didn't answer. He simply put his palms together and bowed again. "Miss Thorne, I won't disturb you any longer. If you need anything, please don't hesitate to call." Liam felt like he'd punched a bag of cotton. He was about to say something else, something sharp, but Chloe stopped him. Liam, we agreed, a proper, peaceful send-off for my mother. Even Mr. Croft knows this is a place of mourning, not a place to fight. Do you really have to pick a fight right now? Her words were a heavy weight on his chest. He thought of the $450,000 of that photograph, but he couldn't say a word. Liam knew that if he dared to say anything more, Chloe would kick him out immediately, and she would never speak to him again. After the funeral, Liam drove Chloe home. She didn't refuse. As they pulled up to the house, Liam saw a moving truck parked in the driveway. He honked the horn irritably. Chloe flinched at the sound. She opened the car door and got out. I called them. Liam, I'm moving out. Chapter 14, this was the first house they had bought together, a small, detached home. At the time, Chloe thought it was too expensive. Liam had said, it's our forever place, it's worth it. Later, Liam bought many other properties, some as investments, some for convenience. But in his heart, when he thought of home, this was the only place that came to mind. Chloe was here, so this was home. But now, Chloe was leaving. The stone that had been hanging over his head, heavy with dread, finally dropped. Liam belatedly understood. The peace of the last few days wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't even the calm before the storm. There would be no storm. Her sorrow, her anger, her despair, Liam no longer had the right to any of her emotions. Watching Chloe calmly direct the movers, Liam was struck by a terrifying realization. The love he was so confident in, the bond he thought was woven into their very DNA, had been snipped away, piece by his own hand or by hers. You can't leave. Liam grabbed Chloe's arm. She didn't struggle. She just looked at him, her eyes calm. Why? Yes, why? Because I love you. The words left his mouth, and a chill crept up his spine. Chloe looked at him and gave a small, silent laugh. Liam shook his head in terror. Don't, Chloe, don't, but no matter how he protested, Chloe said the words anyway. But I don't love you anymore. Liam, I don't love you and I don't hate you. From now on, let's just go our separate ways, okay? She even asked for his opinion, as if it mattered. But even Liam knew his opinion was irrelevant. Still, he refused to let go. He had never been so childish in his life, but right now, he just wouldn't let go. Chloe's cool fingers began to pry his own, one by one. Liam, let's be civil about this. I'm begging you. Liam, you're hurting me. He clenched his jaw. He couldn't let go. He had a premonition that if he let go now, he would never find her again. I'm the child's father. His gaze hardened. Where do you think you're going with my child? Chloe's brow furrowed, as if she were looking at an unsolvable math problem from her youth. She let out a dry, humorless laugh. Your child? Liam, you're about to get married. How are you going to introduce this child to your powerful in-laws? A cold light entered Chloe's otherwise calm eyes. Don't tell me you plan on introducing it as the bastard child of your mistress. That would be disgusting. Chloe's voice could be so cold. It was filled with shards of ice that stabbed at Liam, making it hard to breathe. Why had he never noticed this before? Even when he had backed her into a corner, she had only ever cried pitifully. She had never truly tried to hurt him. Liam had thought it was because she was too naive, too book-smart. He had never considered the possibility that Chloe didn't hurt him because she loved him. When you love someone that deeply, the thorns you grow point inward. Chloe finally pried his weakened fingers away and walked off without a backward glance. She wasn't a machine. She didn't have a switch she could flip to turn off love. Even now, every step she took away from him felt like the first steps of the little mermaid on her new, agonizing legs. If there were a god, they would see the bloody footprints she left behind. Pain. It hurt, but she had to go. Chloe walked away, step by step, the wind cutting through her thin clothes. This was fate. A brief period of having, followed by a long, drawn-out period of losing. If a person has the courage to be born alone, they should have the courage to walk alone. Until the moment she was shoved into a car. Until that moment, Chloe had been trying to make peace with the world. Unfortunately, the world had no intention of letting her go. Chapter 15, Chloe's phone was snatched and smashed the moment she was dragged through the door. Vivian sat on the sofa, dressed in a haute couture princess gown, blinking her big, innocent eyes at her. Chloe, was your mother's funeral a dignified affair? Her sweet, sing-song voice was chilling. You know, you really should thank me. After all, I'm the one who gave you that dignity. Her smile faded, replaced by a glint of cold steel. Chloe, you should have had the decency to disappear quietly. Chloe stared at Vivian. She was like a poisonous flower, radiating danger. Miss Warner, is this kidnapping? Chloe's question made Vivian burst out laughing. Her mother was always calling her naive, but it was these people who clawed their way up from nothing who were the truly stupid ones. To think you could talk about the law in the face of absolute power? Hilarious. Her doll-like face tilted. Whatever do you mean? Isn't this just a case of the relentless mistress coming to harass the dignified wife? Chloe's brow tightened. What do you want? Liam and I are over. I'm not going to stop you from marrying him, and I have no intention of interfering in your marriage. Vivian nodded, humming softly. That's what you think now. But later, you'll realize that Liam Stone is the best you'll ever get. Then you'll be consumed by regret, wondering how that stupid woman could have let go of her golden ticket so easily. In your miserable, poverty-stricken life, a wicked thought will take root. And then you'll come back. What will you be like then? Vivian couldn't stop laughing. She looked at the woman before her, refusing to admit that what she felt was jealousy. Liam Stone. A man like Liam should only ever deal in transactions. He wanted power, and Vivian could provide it. That kind of relationship was unbreakable. So why did this woman, with nothing and no one behind her, command Liam's protection? Any man, faced with a choice between them, should have chosen Vivian Warner. It was the only logical answer. This Chloe, this confusing, bewitching variable was infuriating. Vivian had to use money and connections to get Liam. Chloe got him just by existing. I won't, Chloe said quietly, standing as still as a tree. Vivian had done her research. A life like Chloe's, wouldn't it have been better to just die and start over? Why did she keep surviving? The woman whose body was hollowed out by a life of excess looked at this plant's vibrant life force with vicious envy. The jealousy made Vivian drop her innocent facade. She lit a cigarette, her voice becoming hoarse and tired. Of course you won't. By then, you'll be a withered hag, your face worn down by a hard life. What would you have to compete with me, the heiress to Warner Consolidated? The smell of smoke hit Chloe, and she frowned instinctively. This earned a sneer from Vivian. But the thing in your belly will. Vivian watched the color drain from Chloe's face, a triumphant smile spreading across her own. Did you really think my family built its empire on luck? Generations of hard work. Why should we let some outsider benefit? I like Liam, I'm willing to give him what he wants. But not you, and not the child in your belly that carries his blood. A chill started in Chloe's feet and crept up her legs, freezing her solid. Chloe, there's going to be a news story today. It's either mistress and love child try to force hand, suffers miscarriage in fall and gets her just deserts. Or, heartbroken and abandoned woman commits suicide out of despair. Which one do you prefer? Vivian stubbed out her cigarette, poured a glass of wine, and stalked over to Chloe on her sharp stiletto heels. She poured the red wine over Chloe's head. It dripped down like blood. She stared into Chloe's face, her eyes filled with challenge and contempt, trying to find a flicker of fear, waiting for her to ask some pathetic question. But she stared for a long time and saw nothing. Vivian smirked, still pretending. Choose. Chloe glanced at the closed door, flanked by two large men. There was no way to contact the outside world. She was trapped. Miss Warner, Chloe began. Since you've done your research on me, Vivian raised an eyebrow, curious. Chloe continued on her own. Then you must know what kind of trouble my gambling addict father caused me. Those debt collectors, they were like flies you couldn't swat away. Disgusting. But tell me, why do you think I'm still alive? Before Vivian could react, Chloe had snatched a fruit knife from the table. In one swift movement, she had an arm around Vivian's neck, and the blade pressed firmly against her carotid artery. Because a person with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous thing in the world. Vivian, you shouldn't have pushed me. Chapter 16, at Vivian's terrified scream, the men outside burst in, but no one dared to take a step forward. They could see a thin line of blood already beating on Vivian's pale neck. Save me, you useless idiots, Vivian shrieked, her voice catching as a fresh wave of pain silenced her. She was trembling. I'll let you go, okay. Chloe, I'll let you go in economics. The one with the most to lose is the one who pays. Chloe let out a small, bitter laugh. Vivian, it's better if we die together. Vivian broke down completely, tears and snot streaming down her face, all traces of her earlier arrogance gone. A hothouse flower might get a few branches clipped by the gardener and think it has seen battle. It knows nothing of the wild, where even a blade of grass is eaten by a bird, excreted, and has to fight to take root, enduring wind, sun, and storms. Who was the naive one now? "Call Liam," Chloe said. When Liam got the call, he ran so many red lights he lost count. He practically fell out of the car before it had even stopped. His legs were weak. He was terrified he would find Chloe lying in a pool of her own blood. Arriving with him were Vivian's parents and the police. Chloe's arm, holding the knife steady for so long, was beginning to tremble almost imperceptibly. As Vivian bled more, she not only cried herself hoarse, but a pale yellow stain spread across her designer dress, the result of a failed escape attempt when the knife had sliced a little deeper into her skin. "Dad, Mom," Vivian wailed. Her usually haughty parents now wore the same panicked expressions as any other mother and father. "How much money do you want? Just tell us don't hurt my daughter. She's so young her life has just begun." A dull ache throbbed in Chloe's chest. Her own mother was gone. In the long river of her life, no one would ever again call her daughter with such urgency. She was young too, but her life felt like it had already spanned several lifetimes. The crisis negotiator was asking her what her conditions were. It was laughable. No matter how she fought, in the face of absolute power, her resistance was a joke. In the end, she was just another jealous, wicked woman. Even if Vivian tearfully admitted she had kidnapped and threatened her, to anyone watching, it would only look like a rich girl forced to lie by a manipulative mistress. Liam Stone was a man of dignity. Even at his poorest, his back was always straight. He could negotiate deals without ever bending his spine. But now, he was crawling on the floor like a spineless shrimp. On his way here, he had seen the snipers getting into position. This was all because of him. Early, he was on his knees, his body racked with sobs. The more he understood the Warners, the more he despaired. Liam believed Chloe. He knew Vivian had pushed her to this, but he was the only one who believed. A despair he hadn't even felt as a teenager had finally caught up to him. Of course, Chloe knew it too. The moment she picked up that knife, she knew she had walked into a dead end. But if she hadn't, she would have died a much quieter, more anonymous death. She looked at Liam, outside the police tape, at the man she had loved for 10 years, kneeling and crying so wretchedly. It all felt unreal, like a scene from another life. Her arm was shaking violently now. She knew she couldn't hold on much longer. A sharp pain was cramping her lower abdomen. The negotiator's mouth was moving, but the words were a silent film in her mind, like a droning high school teacher. The teacher used to say, "In 10 years, you'll thank yourself for working so hard now. Your futures have infinite possibilities." All those nights spent studying, the calluses on her fingers, the relentless refusal to give up in the face of despair. Chloe had tried so hard, her mother had tried so hard, but they were both missing a little bit of luck. A glint of sunlight from a sniper scope flashed in her eyes. She squinted. Liam let out a desperate, broken scream. She's pregnant," he lunged forward. He prayed to any god that was listening. If someone had to be taken today, take him. Chapter 17, there was no gunshot. Chloe's hand went slack. She dropped the sticky knife to the floor and raised her blood-stained hands as if reaching for an embrace from the heavens. Freed from her grasp, Vivian collapsed into a heap on the floor, a puddle of expensive fabric and fear. It wasn't worth it. To end her life for these people, Chloe decided it wasn't worth it. Her arms were twisted behind her back, the pain sharp enough to feel like a dislocation. She was forced to the ground. Her pale face was smudged with dirt. As Vivian was whisked away by a throng of people, she looked back at Chloe, her eyes filled with venom. Her voice, usually so carefully modulated in public, was now as vicious as the old witch from Snow White. "She's a mistress, she was stalking my fiancé, and she tried to kill me." Liam watched Chloe being led away, his usually steady voice trembling. She's pregnant. He didn't know how he managed to get to his feet after they took her away. He couldn't collapse. He was the only one who could save her. Just like when he was 18, he had to carry their world on his shoulders. He had to bring Chloe back. Liam called in every favor he had, but the answer was always the same. The Warners are watching this closely. The person who tied the bell is the only one who can untie it. Vivian was traumatized, and the Warner family had made it clear. They wanted the harshest possible punishment, no matter the cost. Liam swallowed his pride. He went to them, begging them to be merciful, but Mr. Warner was back to his imperious self. "Liam, you are our son-in-law. You need to know your place. Don't be a fool, and it's not like my daughter has to marry you, Mrs." Warner looked at the man before her, a man who could one day become the family's greatest threat. He was so young, and her husband was already old. "Liam, Vivian is our only daughter. This whole thing is up to her. A family like ours, we're not unreasonable." Liam understood. He had been so naive. He thought his own claws were sharp, but he had never seen a real predator's. If only he had listened to Chloe. Why did he have to wade into this cesspool? If his ambition hadn't been so vast, he and Chloe would still be like they were before. 3 meals a day, building their life together. Waiting for the 1 in a million chance that her mother would wake up. And he would have a child. That child would grow up safe and sound, calling Chloe Mom and him Dad. He would scoop the small, soft thing into his arms and let it ride on his shoulders. Chloe would be there, watching over their child, watching the two of them, her face lit with a happy smile. "Liam," he slapped himself hard across the face. "You screwed everything up." Liam went to beg Vivian. She looked at him with tear-filled eyes. "Liam, look, my neck is scarred." Her voice was thick with self-pity. "And it's all because of you for the wedding. You have to buy me a huge, massive, giant diamond ring." "Liam, you haven't even proposed to me properly." Liam took a step back and dropped to one knee. "You don't look very happy about it," Vivian pouted. "You're not even smiling." Liam gritted his teeth, bowed his head, and then looked up with a perfect, practiced smile. "Vivian, marry me?" Vivian beamed, tapping his other knee with the toe of her high-heeled shoe. Liam smiled and knelt on both knees. "Your Highness, please stop teasing me." His tone was adoring, like a poor man being playfully tormented by his girlfriend. Seeing Liam kneeling before her, begging, Vivian reached out and ran her fingers through his short, stiff hair. It was like stroking a newly tamed dog. Her voice was a mix of innocent petulance and triumph. "Liam, you must always remember that you owe me. Everything you have from now on is a gift from the Warner family." Liam wrapped his arms around Vivian, pulling her into an embrace. As she rested her head against his chest, she heard his gentle voice. "I will never forget." What Vivian couldn't see was the frozen mask of ice that had become Liam's face. 3 months later, Chloe was released. The flat stomach she'd had going in was now a prominent swell, making her already slender frame seem even more fragile. An officer told her someone had found surveillance footage of her being forced into the car and taken to the Warner residence, proving she hadn't acted with premeditation. The Warners had also agreed to a settlement. As she stepped out of the station, Chloe saw an unfamiliar black SUV parked at the curb. The door opened, and she flinched back, but then she saw a warm, smiling face. "Miss Thorne, I'm not crazy enough to try and abduct someone right in front of a police station." Lucas Croft held the door open for her. "Care to talk?" Chloe didn't speak or move. Lucas smiled again. "To clear your name, I had to comb through every security camera in the city." So, it was him. Chloe had no reason to refuse. She got in the car. Chapter 18. The car drove smoothly. Lucas didn't speak for a while. The silence between them wasn't awkward. Finally, Lucas passed a small thermos to the back. "My sister is also pregnant. She says eating bird's nest soup gives the baby good skin." Chloe didn't take it. "Why are you helping me?" She had known Lucas for years, but never well. Their only significant interaction had been the sale of Liam's bid information. Not a great start to a relationship. Lucas put the thermos back. "I think it's a total scam anyway. How can a bird's saliva affect a human?" Genetics would be screaming in protest. Chloe let out a small huff of laughter. That sounded more like him. The act was pointless. "I've done a background check on you. The rapid growth of stone industries over the years is inseparable from your contributions. Chloe, I want to hire you." Chloe shook her head. Wasn't she tired of it all? How much longer did she have to wallow in this muck? "I'm sorry, Mr. Croft. Thank you for the offer. But I'm leaving." Abroad, another city, it didn't matter, just away from here. Lucas didn't respond to that. Instead, he changed the subject. "Miss Thorne, do you know how many generations it takes to move from one social class to another?" Chloe looked out the window, annoyed. "I don't have such lofty ambitions." Lucas just smiled. "Don't be so quick to decide. From my limited observation, for the middle class and below, it takes generations of work just to build the base of the pyramid. Unless you get a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, or a powerful benefactor? Chloe frowned. This man was tedious. Lucas saw her impatience in the rearview mirror but continued to smile. But to fall from the top, that can happen in an instant. Miss Thorne, don't you want to see the Warner family fall? Chloe froze. Their eyes met in the mirror. Wealth is fluid. Nothing is indestructible. To be blunt, I can't stand them. Chloe looked down, then back up. What you can't stand is that you're not the one at the top. You want to bring down the Warners, but you don't want to get your own hands dirty. So you need me. Your knife. A phantom heat spread through her palm. Her hand had been stained with Warner blood. She used to think blood was just a liquid, but that day, when Vivian's blood had slicked her hand, it had been hot, nauseating. There's a revulsion that comes with harming one of your own kind. To become a killer who doesn't blink, you have to completely annihilate your own humanity. It's like having a piece of your living soul chopped off. You're left incomplete, neither human nor ghost. Lucas! Chloe was too tired for formalities. I refuse to be your pawn. I'm grateful for what you did for me, but that was your investment, and investments come with risks. You lost your bet. Accept it. You can let me out up ahead. Lucas clicked his tongue, as if genuinely disappointed. The car stopped abruptly. As Chloe reached for the door, Lucas called out to her. Chloe, I sincerely hope you don't have to learn about the Warner family's depravity through an even more painful lesson. The trees want to be still, but the wind will not stop. I urge you to consider my offer, and I need to clarify two things. First, it's the Croft family that doesn't want to get its hands dirty, not me. As I'm sure you've gathered by now, I'm the family's designated hatchet man. Second, I'm not inviting you to be a pawn. I'm inviting you to be the one moving the pieces. As Chloe pulled the door open, Lucas said one more thing. I want to bring down the Warners and the Crofts. Chloe, I've just told you a secret I can't tell anyone else. Either you're in or you get as far away from here as you can and never come back. If you can even get out. Chloe looked back at him. A threat? Lucas's expression was grim. Liam Stone and Vivian Warner are married. The Warner family will never allow a child with Liam's blood to exist as a ticking time bomb out in the world. Chapter 19, when Chloe left that day, Lucas's last words were, Chloe, you can call me anytime. Of course, I hope the next time I hear from you, it's because you're on the other side of the planet, starting a new, free life. If so, I'll be genuinely happy for you. Chloe didn't think much of it at first. Then, an envelope was slipped under the door of her temporary motel room. Inside were printouts of several news articles. Besides the ones celebrating Liam and Vivian's lavish wedding, there was an official statement from Stone Industries. On behalf of Mr. Liam Stone, Stone Industries states that all recent rumors regarding Mr. Stone's personal life are false. Mr. Stone has never been in a serious relationship with anyone other than Miss Vivian Warner. Rumors of a mistress, a child, or any other such falsehoods are baseless. In the past, present, and future, Mr. Stone has and will only have one love, Miss Warner. A photograph fell out of the envelope. It was of Chloe at a bakery that morning. A red circle was drawn around her stomach, which was hidden under a loose coat. On top of the circle was a big, drawn-on smiley face. For the next few days, no matter where Chloe moved, an envelope would find its way to her the next day. She felt like she was living in a massive reality show, constantly watched by hidden cameras. Every passerby was a potential threat, and because her case wasn't officially closed, she was restricted from traveling. After a car nearly hit her while she was out running an errand, Chloe became too afraid to leave her room. She didn't even dare to go out for food, let alone go for a prenatal checkup. The immense stress made her sick. A fever raged through her, her mind a hazy fog. She couldn't take medication. Multiple cold showers did nothing to bring her temperature down. She ordered some fever-reducing patches and waited. A few knocks on the door. Lying on the bed, she croaked out, "Just leave it at the door." She forced her fever-weakened body to get up. As she went to get her delivery, her phone slipped and fell. At 6 months pregnant, bending over was already difficult. As she squatted down to pick up the phone, her eyes caught a black shadow under the door. The delivery person hadn't left. Chloe clamped a hand over her mouth, terrified. She crept to the door and heard heavy breathing from the other side. She silently retreated behind the bed. She tried calling the front desk, but no one answered. The person outside seemed to sense her presence. The doorknob jiggled. Chloe started to dial 911 but hung up. What could she say? That there was a man standing in the hallway. The doorknob turned slightly. Hiding behind the bed, Chloe felt a sharp cramp in her abdomen. Her hands trembling, she dialed a number. Lucas arrived quickly. The person at the door was gone. They checked the hotel's security footage. A man in a baseball cap and a mask had been standing outside her door for a long time. He had even tried the handle. When he saw Lucas's car pull up, he had quickly fled down the other end of the hall. He was dressed in black from head to toe, his head down the entire time, offering no useful clues. "It seems they've been watching you," Lucas said, but then he noticed the unnatural flush on Chloe's face, her eyes hazy and struggling to focus. Chloe looked at him as if on a time delay, her lips chapped and bleeding. "Are you sick?" Getting no answer, Lucas pressed his hand to her forehead. It was burning hot. My stomach hurts." Chloe clutched her abdomen, her face contorted in pain. Lucas's gaze followed her hand down, his eyes widened. Blood was trickling down her leg. Chapter 20, when Chloe woke up, the first thing she smelled was antiseptic. She remembered being with Lucas, checking the surveillance footage, then the stomach pain, the baby. She shot up, yanking the IV needle in the back of her hand without a second thought. Her hand flew to her stomach. It felt cold, empty. "The baby's fine." Lucas, who had been sitting by her side, quickly pushed her back down. Seeing her panicked state, he explained, "The doctor said the bleeding was partly due to placenta previa, and also—" Chloe stared at him, her eyes wide. "And also what?" "The doctor said your blood test showed trace amounts of mifepristone." Seeing her confused expression, he clarified, "The abortion pill." Chloe ripped the IV needle from her hand, flinging it and a spray of blood to the floor. "Where are you going?" Lucas grabbed her. "Are you trying to kill the baby or yourself?" Forced back onto the bed, Chloe turned her head away, biting down hard as bitter. Salty tears flooded her mouth. Why wouldn't they just leave her alone? What would it take for them to finally let her go? Tears streamed from the corners of her reddened eyes. Lucas sighed and gently pressed a few tissues into her hand. "When you're discharged, you can stay at my place. Don't worry, you can stay even if you don't join my team. At least until the baby is born. Once your legal issues are completely resolved, I'll find a way to get you out of the country. Don't cry. If you keep crying like this, you'll kill yourself before they even get a chance." Chloe clenched the tear-soaked tissues in her fist and said, "Without any warning, I'm in." Lucas looked as if he hadn't heard her correctly, leaning in slightly. "My hearing has always been a little weak." "What did you just say?" Chloe threw the tissues into the trash can. "Lucas, stop pretending." Lucas burst out laughing, a genuine, hearty laugh. He nodded and extended his hand. "Once you draw the bow, there's no turning back. Chloe, I can't promise you much right now, but I can promise you this. From this moment on, as long as I, Lucas Croft, am still breathing, you and your child will be safe." The back of her hand, pierced by the IV needle, was still bleeding. It was a slender, delicate hand, the pale skin showing bluish veins. This hand had picked up shattered photographs, had been held and protected in Liam's embrace, had clasped her mother's cold, stiff fingers, and had been stained with Vivian's blood. She raised her hand and slapped Lucas's extended one away. "I have conditions for being your pawn. Lucas, you have to tell me, why are you declaring war?" Lucas rubbed his hand, pondering for a moment. "For the people." His ill-timed joke was met with a glare from Chloe. He coughed awkwardly. "It's a long story. Are you sure you want to hear it?" Chloe shifted into a more comfortable position. "Can you finish before my baby is born?" Lucas blinked, taking a second to realize she had just made a joke. He smiled. "I can." The story, when told, was a cliché, but for the people living it, it was an unspeakable pain. In the few years that Chloe had parents and could attend school peacefully, Lucas was already being called a bastard. His birth wasn't even the result of love. It was a drunken one-night stand by a rich young heir. Lucas's mother was a college student working a summer job to save for tuition. The Croft family, of course, refused to acknowledge the bastard child, but they found out too late. A little earlier, and Lucas Croft would not exist. After Lucas was born, his young mother, crushed by gossip and ostracized by her own parents, saw no way out. But before she died, she left Lucas a lifeline. "His father is rich. You can raise him and get money from his father." That same year, Lucas's older brother died, just as the Croft family was in the critical phase of dividing its assets. Lucas was taken in. "They would have been better off leaving me to die on the streets," Lucas said with a laugh, gesturing with his hands. "I was 6. My father threw a porcelain vase this big at me. All because I wasn't as good at charming my grandfather as my uncle's son." Chloe couldn't quite make out his last words. It sounded like so ruthless. Or maybe it was so much hatred. She didn't really care. He was just another victim of a rich family's power struggle, and the world was full of victims. Chloe moved into Lucas's home and started working at the small, independent company he ran outside of the Croft corporate umbrella. A key reason Lucas wanted her on his team was because of the technology she had developed in her graduate program. It was the future, a trend that was taking over the world. Jessica's offer to go to London had been for her to continue this research. Of course, they couldn't publicly explain their relationship that way. When Chloe Ray emerged into the public eye, it was as Lucas Croft's girlfriend. The next time she saw Liam, she was 8 months pregnant and moved with a certain awkwardness. She turned, and their eyes met. The wine glass in Liam's hand slipped, spilling its contents on her dress. They stared at each other. Only a few months had passed, but it felt like a lifetime. "Where have you been?" Chapter 21. Liam's voice was an uncontrollable tremor. "I sent people to get you. They said you were already gone. Where have you been all this time? Are you okay?" Vivian was nearby. Liam was afraid of drawing her attention and didn't dare to be more obvious. Chloe blinked a few times, her voice steady. "Long time no see. And congratulations on your wedding, Mr. Stone." Liam's hand tightened around his wine glass as if he were about to crush it. He glanced around, his voice low. "Early, it's not what you think. You have to believe me." The words sounded ridiculous even to his own ears. Chloe didn't know how much effort he had put into finding her these past few months, carefully avoiding the Warners' watchful eyes, every second without news an eternity of torment. He hadn't stopped thinking about her for a single moment. He craved news of her, yet dreaded the call that would bring him the news he didn't want to hear. Seeing her now, standing right in front of him, safe and sound, it was as if all the agony of the past few months had been forgiven. Liam suppressed his elation and took a step forward, reaching for her wrist. He wanted to get her out of here. It wasn't safe. "Early, come with me," but Chloe immediately took a half step back. "Who's Early?" "Mr. Stone, if you have something to say, can't you say it here?" Her voice wasn't loud, but it was crisp and clear. It immediately drew the attention of those around them. Vivian's head snapped in their direction. The smile that had been on her face froze, her brow furrowing. As Liam watched in alarm, Vivian stalked toward them like a rooster spoiling for a fight. Vivian ignored Liam's attempts to stop her and stood before Chloe, her body language a declaration of war. Her sickly sweet voice was clear and bright. "Chloe, your old boss is a married man now. To keep chasing after him like this, so desperate to be the other woman, it's so undignified." Liam's heart seized. He wanted to tear Vivian to pieces, but not now. He needed time. Damn it, he needed time, but Chloe's expression was unruffled. She met Vivian's gaze head-on. "Mrs. Stone, not every woman is interested in your husband. You really don't need to be so territorial." Vivian's face changed. Lately, she had been finding it hard to control her emotions. In response to the provocation, she instinctively raised her hand to slap Chloe. But her hand was stopped by 2 different forces at almost the same time. Liam grabbed her shoulder, and Lucas smeared a piece of cake all over her hand. "Lucas, are you insane?" Vivian's shriek was almost a breakdown. Liam held her shoulder but made no move to stop Lucas. The scream drew the attention of nearly everyone in the room. People were shocked to see the Warner family's doll-like daughter capable of screeching like a shrew. Now, Vivian," Lucas said with a smile, his tone magnanimous, as if he were dealing with a child. "You were about to assault my girlfriend. What man wouldn't step in?" The word girlfriend froze Liam in place. He glared at Lucas, his eyes a dangerous warning. "Mr. Croft, girlfriend?" Lucas made a non-committal sound and shook his head. "To be precise, fiancé." He steadied Chloe by her arm. "As you can see, Mr. Stone, I'm about to become a father." This time, Liam's eyes nearly bulged out of his head. The familiar, dangerous smile returned to his lips. "Lucas, did you say you're going to be a father?" Vivian glanced at Liam. The fire in his eyes somehow reignited her own anger. Why did Liam always change into a different person whenever Chloe was involved? "Liam, are you jealous?" Vivian asked through clenched teeth, a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "If you're so jealous, maybe you should try a little harder tonight. We need to catch up to Mr. Croft. I'm the sole heiress of the Warner family. I can't be outdone by some bastard born of a stray cat." Lucas had just been insulted, but he didn't get angry. He just smiled. That infuriating, indifferent smile, the smile of a superior looking down at an inferior, only fanned the flames of Vivian and Liam's anger. Chloe, who had been silent until now, spoke. "Mrs. Stone, if you and Mr. Stone wish to flirt, you can do so at home. There's no need to do it in front of all these people. I'm a pregnant woman, after all. It's bad for the baby's development." She said it with a completely straight face. Lucas had to suppress a laugh, placing a hand on her stomach. "Don't listen, little one. Don't pay attention to the stray cat's barking." This bit of teamwork from Lucas made Chloe dip her head and smile. "Lucas, stop it." The gentle tone of her voice was a knife to Liam's heart. Chapter 22, that tone had once been his and his alone. Now, not only had Lucas stolen it, but he had the audacity to claim Chloe and her child as his own. He wanted to punch Lucas into the next dimension, pull Chloe into his arms, and tell her how much he missed her, how guilty he felt. But he had no right. The public statement the Warners had forced him to release had already told the world that Chloe's child had nothing to do with him. Liam watched as Lucas and Chloe walked away together. He heard the congratulations from the people around them, congratulations that should have been for him. "Liam, Liam." Vivian had to call his name several times before he snapped out of it, much to her displeasure. "Liam, you're not having inappropriate thoughts about another man's girlfriend, are you?" Her voice was sharp with emotion. "Don't forget who gave you everything you have now." Liam turned to her, his eyes so cold and hard that a shiver went down her spine. But in the next second, he was back to normal. His hand on her shoulder tightened slightly. "How could I ever forget, my princess?" Liam staked out the building for days, finally finding an opportunity when Chloe was alone. Lucas was at a meeting at Croft Enterprises, and she was in a baby store downstairs, buying tiny clothes. Chloe was carefully examining the clothes, feeling the texture, holding them up to the light. She seemed to be judging their suitability. The soft light of the store bathed her face in a gentle, maternal glow. She was so engrossed that she didn't notice Liam until he was standing right behind her. It wasn't until his familiar hand covered hers on the tiny garment that she realized he was there. The flicker of panic in her eyes stabbed at Liam's heart. He knew how terrified she must have been all this time, a pregnant woman, alone and hunted. "Mr. Stone?" Chloe quickly regained her composure. This infuriated Liam. "Chloe, Vivian isn't here. You don't have to be like this." She looked at him, confused. "What do you mean, Mr. Stone? What does it have to do with me whether your wife is here or not? And how I am has nothing to do with you." Liam let out a long sigh. "Early, I know you're still angry with me. But you have to believe me. I haven't forgotten about you and the baby for a single day." He reached out, wanting to touch her stomach. But Chloe recoiled as if from something unclean. "Mr. Stone, please be mindful of your actions." Liam was getting angry. There was no one else here. Why did she still have to be so cold to him? "Stop it, Early. I know you and Lucas are just putting on a show. And so are Vivian and I. I've told you 1,000 times, it's just a business deal. Just give me a little more time." "It won't be long." Chloe looked at the man in front of her, babbling on, lost in his own world. They had been together for 10 years. She once thought that the person who understood her best in the world was Liam, but she had been wrong. Liam loved her, but he didn't understand her. He was always trying to arrange their lives, to control everything, without ever stopping to consider if it was what she wanted. Even when she told him, again and again, he didn't hear her. For a moment, Chloe felt a wave of sadness. It was fated. If Liam hadn't been so relentlessly ambitious, he wouldn't have been able to shoulder everything at 18. But maybe some people are just meant to walk with you for only a part of your journey. Even if that part was unforgettable, it was still in the past. "Liam," Chloe's voice softened. A flicker of hope ignited in Liam's eyes. Chloe looked at him, as if seeing through him to the 18-year-old boy he once was. "Liam, stop trapping yourself in the past. We're on different paths now. I have to move forward and you do too." "Early," Liam's voice trembled. You've really misunderstood me. One day, you'll understand why I did all of this. Chloe watched his breakdown with a detached calm, as if she were watching her own past self. She didn't want to hurt him, just as she believed that most of the time, he hadn't wanted to hurt her. But the wheels of fate only turn forward. Chloe heard her own voice, impossibly calm. It doesn't matter anymore. Liam, all the misunderstandings, all the fights between us, none of it matters now. There may have been other factors that led us to this point, but the most important one is this. I don't love you anymore. Liam, I'm not in love with you anymore. That's all. Chapter 23. Vivian's outburst at the gala had somehow been leaked online. Although the Warner Corporation immediately went into damage control, they were horrified to discover that the source was on international servers, beyond their control. Headlines like "Warner Heiress bullies pregnant woman" and "Vivian Warner publicly humiliates husband" were spreading like wildfire. The Warner family, already struggling to cope with market pressures, was now facing a public relations nightmare. They had brought Liam in because they knew Warner Consolidated was a fading giant that needed new blood to survive. For the first time in her life, Vivian was grounded by her parents. She went on a rampage, smashing everything in the house. She was restless, antsy, as if a million ants were crawling under her skin. It was an itch that couldn't be scratched, no matter how much she clawed at her own flesh. It was then that she received an anonymous message on her phone. It was a photograph. In the photo, Liam and Chloe were in the baby store, standing opposite each other, a world of meaning in their eyes. Vivian threw the phone to the ground, then snatched it back up and made a call. I want Chloe Thorne and that bastard in her belly to not see tomorrow's sunrise. Chloe was walking home alone, carrying the small bag of baby clothes. When a car careened out of control towards her, the headlights blinded her. There was a deafening crash. Chloe stood frozen, staring ahead as the dust settled. He got him. The car Lucas was driving, a beast of reinforced steel, had met the other car head-on, stopping it in its tracks. In the next second, a man in a black baseball cap stumbled out of the wrecked car. Blood was streaming from a gash on his head, but he was already charging at Chloe with a knife. Lucas sent him flying with a powerful kick. The wail of police sirens followed immediately, and the man was subdued. A nearby traffic camera had captured the entire incident in crystal-clear detail. The evidence was irrefutable. The footage from the motel was also used to prove his premeditation, but during questioning, the man insisted he was acting alone. Until Chloe had a file sent to his interrogation room, the man broke down on the spot. The file contained photos of a young girl being bullied by her peers. The girl in the photos was the man's sister. She had been studying abroad with Vivian. A girl in the prime of her life had committed suicide in a foreign country. Vivian had fabricated evidence, telling the man she was his sister's only friend, that she had been there for her through her depression. In reality, Vivian had been the one orchestrating the bullying. The incident had caused a stir among the international students at the time, but no one had dared to speak up against the powerful Warner family. Lucas had contacted Jessica and other friends to finally piece together the truth. The man, devastated, realized that the person he had been trying to repay was the very person who had driven his sister to her death. He immediately confessed everything, including how Vivian had ordered him to abduct Chloe. He now saw with horrifying clarity that what Vivian had done to Chloe was exactly what she had done to his sister. Chloe leaked the surveillance footage online. Public opinion exploded. The Warner family's reach, no matter how long, could not cover the sky. But the Warners didn't go down without a fight. They claimed the man was fabricating stories to save himself. They even tried to manipulate public opinion, suggesting that the man and Chloe were having an affair. But this time, they failed. Jessica, from abroad, mobilized the international student community to expose Vivian's history of abuse. The scandal grew. The Warner family opted for damage control, planning to send Vivian abroad until things cooled down. But even Vivian couldn't have predicted that she would be stopped at customs. Illegal drugs were found in a hidden compartment in her luggage. A blood test confirmed that Vivian had been using drugs recently. The final nail in Vivian's coffin was Liam's testimony. Without notifying the Warner family, Liam held a press conference as Vivian's husband. With a somber expression, He told the world that he had discovered after their marriage that his wife was a drug addict. And then, live on air, he officially reported Warner consolidated to the IRS for tax evasion. The fire that had been smoldering for years finally roared to life. Chapter 24, Liam's righteous betrayal, crippled the Warner family and sent Vivian to a rehab facility. Mr. Warner, overwhelmed, suffered a fatal brain hemorrhage on the way to the hospital. Mrs. Warner tried to salvage the company, but she had been out of the business world for too long. An old woman trying to fight a losing battle, she was quickly overwhelmed by a crumbling board of directors and a company in freefall. Liam seized the opportunity and acquired a majority stake in the company. The day Liam became the de facto head of the former Warner empire, Chloe gave birth to a daughter in the hospital. She was beautiful, with fair skin and delicate features. When Liam rushed to the hospital room, it was empty. Only Lucas was there, waiting. Lucas told him Chloe was gone. When Liam pressed for more information, Lucas just shook his head. "Liam, maybe you'll see her again someday. I hope that when you do, you won't be in such a pathetic state." Lucas looked at him with that same calm, gentle smile. "And congratulations, Mr. Stone. You've been promoted from son-in-law to CEO. But you know, a man with your background, it's not very respectable at the top of this pyramid." Liam swung his fist at Lucas, but Lucas dodged it effortlessly. He let out a small laugh. "Liam, the battles of adults are no longer fought with fists." That day, Liam sat in the hospital for hours, until the sky was completely dark and the wind chilled the hand holding his cigarette. He looked up at the stars, wishing he could warm Chloe's hands one more time. Lucas hadn't lied to him. Liam did see Chloe again, but by then he was 38. Another 10 years had passed. Those 10 years had been hard. He had been guarding a sinking ship, a target for anyone and everyone who wanted to take a piece of his crumbling empire. Especially Lucas and a new company that had risen in the past decade. The two of them worked in tandem, a 1-2 punch that left Liam exhausted. But most importantly, Liam had lost his will to fight. Chloe was gone, vanished as if she had never existed, leaving him with nothing to hold onto. His only outlet was Vivian, whom he had institutionalized in a psychiatric hospital. After several failed attempts at rehab, she had finally lost her mind. But every time he saw her, a ghost of her former self, kneeling before him, begging for forgiveness, he just felt annoyed. Liam couldn't understand the point of his daily struggle. He had gotten what he wanted, but he had no one to share it with. He saw Chloe again at a corporate acquisition meeting. Liam was finally breaking up and selling off the last pieces of the Warner company. He was tired. He didn't want to manage this mess anymore. He never expected Chloe to be the one to buy him out. 10 years had changed her. She was almost 40, but she looked more at ease, more radiant than she had a decade ago. "Mr. Stone, long time no see." It was Chloe who extended her hand first. Liam's hand trembled so much he could barely reciprocate. He stared at the woman he had thought about every day for a decade. He had imagined their reunion 1,000 times, but never like this. Chloe, reigning over his former business empire. Lucas stood beside her, smirking at Liam's trembling hand. "Mr. Stone, now that you don't have to clean up this mess anymore, you can finally get some rest." Before Liam could get angry, Chloe glanced at Lucas. Her tone was familiar, easy. "Lucas, stop it." Lucas just smiled, a relaxed, genuine smile. After the signing, there was a reception. Liam finally found a moment when Chloe was free. Early, all these years, 1,000 words were stuck in his throat. Where could he even begin? "The child, is she okay?" Liam fought back a sob, but his voice still cracked. Chloe stood beside him on the terrace, a relaxed smile on her face. "She's great. She just won first place in a ski competition a few days ago." Liam listened, unable to form a reply. A 10-year gap. He didn't even know what his child looked like, if she resembled him or Chloe. What did she like? Did she speak English? Did she have friends? Was she bullied for not having a father? Chloe looked at the man before her, who had aged beyond his years. His bravado was gone, replaced by a timid uncertainty. It felt like another lifetime. "Liam, we're both doing well," she said. He nodded, trying to maintain his composure. He no longer had the power to arrange her life, and she no longer needed a shoulder to lean on. A breeze blew past. Liam asked, "Can I see a picture of her?" Chloe didn't move. She just looked at him. After a long moment, she said, "Liam, she really is living a very good life." He nodded again. Lucas called to Chloe from a distance. She nodded to Liam in farewell. He nodded back. Chloe took a few steps, then stopped and looked back at him. 10 years had passed so quickly. Soon, the time they had been apart would be longer than the time they had been together. "Liam," she looked at his lost, vacant expression. "Goodbye." After she said goodbye, she didn't look back again. Liam watched until she was completely out of sight. Another gust of wind blew across the terrace, chilling the tears on his face. He wiped his face, his palm resting on the spot on the railing where her hand had just been. On the cold stone, a faint trace of warmth. Liam realized. This time, it was really goodbye.